in space.
So I got a few more questions if you have a few more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So real quick, can you give us the breakdown of what happened on the ISS? I've had a few people talk. I haven't had too much time to look into it, but from what I can tell, there was something that pierced a hole in, I think it was the Soyuz capsule that was attached to the International Space Station. Does that sound right?
So the Soyuz capsule was attached. I haven't looked too far into it because everything's conflicting reports.
Yeah, I've heard some rumors throw it, and I'm like,
Yeah, from the size of the drill that's on the ISS space station, I highly doubt it was ever done in orbit.
Right.
Okay. Right. This was done probably manufacturing.
Okay, so this is prior before you even left Earth, or left the surface.
The conditions of the Soyuz and the manufacturing standards have been dropping fairly consistently over the years. It's one of the reasons that NASA has been trying to scramble to get away from that. Okay, because there's always been questions.
Sure. I mean, and what happened to Orbital ATK when their rocket blew up? I mean, that was an engine that was, 20 or more years old that had been basically sitting in a warehouse. You know, I mean, I'm sure there was some maintenance, but still, I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, it's a high tolerance part, right? There's a lot of high tolerance parts in there. And that's just the way it is. It's just you can't do it. If you can't store these things for long periods. So the Russian inventory is probably nobody wants to talk about it, but there's the stockpile of engines has been sitting there. They've been selling. I suspect they're getting to the end of it.
Yeah.
And hence the reason everybody is pushing and shoving. Right? I mean, there's a lot of pushing and shoving. I don't know what your listeners have been keeping up with, but one of the Russians declaimed it was a sabotage by us on the space station.
Jesus.
It's reaching that level, but I think that's attached to the trade war more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
You know, I don't think that's actually attached to the space industry itself.
No, and it's bleeding over just like it is in everything else, you know?
Yeah. Now, my thing is the Chinese launches. They've outpaced themselves this year.
Wow.
Especially if you count their quote-unquote private space launch. I think they're up to 38 or 39 when they were the previous year was 30. So they're who I think everybody needs to be really concerned with. Because they have the ability to push their economy into that direction forcefully.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and have a push like we had during the space race in this decade.
Correct.
Yeah, in this era.
In this day and age.
Yeah.
So that is my concern, is that they push their economy directly into space and say the consumer is no longer our customer, you're now a space customer. I don't have a faith that they can innovate as quickly as we can.
Right.
But that could come down the road.
It's true.
In 20 years, 30 years, right?
Yep.
That thinking outside the box that's a learned behavior. That's who I fear. The Indians, I like the Indian people. I like what their goals are. I interact a lot with the Indian kids. They're still producing more engineers per capita than anywhere else in the world. So for the future, I keep an eye on them.
Yeah. Not many people are focusing on them, but they're going to have a big impact as things keep going the way they're going. They're going to have a huge impact on space.
Huge impact. And 2020, they want to launch their first astronaut, and they just unveiled their spacesuit today.
Oh, really? Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and it looks like a Russian spacesuit, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Hey, man. There's a reason why we've been using their rockets and their technology for so long. You know, what they made in that era was,
And it's simplicity. I bring it back to our system. You know, the American way is not always the simplest way. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and especially in space, simple is easy. And let's keep it easy, you know. The more complex we make things, the more failures we can have. Well, space is already a complex system that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
So the simpler you can make things, one of the design philosophies that here is that no mechanical systems in space. Electrical, magnetic, chemical. No mechanical. Because mechanicals are high failure items, just by their nature in space.
Yeah.
Unless you highly design it and test it and simulate it and everything you do to it, you know, it's a high failure item.
Right.
To give your listeners an example, the space shuttle's bay doors were a zero fail item. Okay, opening and closing the bay doors.
Zero fail.
Stay in orbit because you couldn't expose the radiators. You couldn't come home if you couldn't close them.
Right. Wow.
So those doors flex 8 feet in either direction, in all directions.
Whoa.
In order to get them to close correctly every time.
That's crazy. And the space shuttle is a great example of redundancy. You know, of making human systems safe.
Zero human loss.
Yes.
Yeah, that was NASA's philosophy.
Right.
We want zero human loss because it would crush the program.
Mm-hmm. And look what it did. Look what human loss did to the program. Every time it kind of comes up, it always goes back to that. It's like, if you look at it as a set of parallel universes, man, this is the rub I have with the scientists saying military's never been in space. Because the U.S. military right now has a space plane sitting in orbit, been up there for over a year, and have done this a couple times. This isn't the first flight. Nope.
And yet NASA doesn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the military is testing high-tech equipment NASA can't even approach yet. And that's just the way it's always been. And that's the reason for the break off of the Space Force, right?
Right, which is great. That's where I wanted to go. Thank you.
But this is not new.
Right.
This has been happening. You know, Space Force has been around, you know, in one form or another. Like the Army Air Corps was around. Okay, and you probably heard this discussion. Well, the thing is that the operational principles of war, of tactics, of just moving around and design are completely different from the ground, the water, the air, and now space.
Yeah.
Space, you got to think about dynamic changes. So stress cycles is a great example of it. Okay. The Army doesn't worry about stress cycles. So when we talk about re-entry vehicles and even space planes, a lot of the space planes, you got to watch stress cycles.
Right.
Because as soon as you start reusing it, you start cycling it through heavy stress, light stress loads, no stress loads. You change the material. Hot to cold, space environment to the Earth environment.
Yeah, extreme changes. Yeah.
So just technical operations are so significantly different from even the Air Force's technical operations. Right. That it warrants a separate sport.
Yep.
There's so much anti-satellite activity going on, we can't tell what is real and what isn't anymore. So it's getting real hard to distinguish what is actually an anti-satellite weapon.
Right. And that could be anything from like a jammer to like a sacrificial satellite that hits itself into other satellites. Like there's
an orbit servicing robot that goes up to an enemy satellite and hacks it. Plugs right into it, right?
Jesus.
You have a second satellite. You got 3 Russian satellites right now that are probably servicing satellites. And these things are wandering around orbit, visiting other satellites.
And how do we get that info? How do we know what that satellite, like I know there's people tracking stuff all the time. Like the amount of people that are pointing telescopes into the sky and tracking is insane if you look into it. But could you tell me more about that?
It's the circles, it's the defense news type stuff, the military. I'm part of the Old Crow Association, which is electronic warfare. So there's actually a paper I'm going to develop on hiding satellites in orbit.
Damn.
Because there's an actual doctrine to it already. This is if you go look at the Military War College, there's space doctrine papers up there you could probably read for 10 years.
Wow.
I mean, you could sit there for 10 years and read them. There's that many of them.
That's wild.
So I mean, there are a lot of ways you can do stuff in orbit just to be clandestine, right? Not even to be overt and actually attack anything. One of the random ones I threw out the other day was we're playing with ferrofluid.
Yes.
What if I scattered a bunch of ferrofluid right in front of your satellite? Let it seep right into the cracks into your motherboards. And now I just killed your satellite and electrically disabled it. And you never see it coming because the satellite's, you'd look at your satellite and it doesn't look like there's any damage done to it.
Right. It's still following its orbital path. It's still, Yeah. So there are serious dangers when we get to this point, and let's call it the ultimate high ground, where you base yourself on the moon. And if you've seen the movie Elysium, it's a good example. If you base yourself on the moon, you can shut down almost everybody in orbit and never let them leave the Earth orbit, because you can shoot them down, because you can see them coming forever, right? Right. And that was the big concern with the original space race, was that the first person to get that high ground, essentially, not that they knew that much at the time, but the concept still stands.
So what's happening right now is, the first is imaging. They want intelligence satellites. Okay. They want to know what we can see.
Right.
Next is probably going to be adding capabilities. Okay. So the consolidation is already under play. We see it happening with announcements pretty regularly on Space Force. And what I always point to for all the detractors is, I haven't seen one politician come out publicly against it.
Yeah.
On either side, any back.
Yeah.
And that's a warning sign that this is already settled and nobody wants to come out against it. Right?
Yeah. Well, and Neil deGrasse Tyson brought up in an interview recently about how even he had brought this up to our politicians before, and basically the Space Command, it was like that was already in place, and it was like, well, they're already doing it, so why do we need to spend the money? It's the same argument, why you need to spend the money, they're already doing it, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that I was thinking of is, so all that stuff, the Earth orbital defensive capabilities, and just putting an organization in charge, a branch of the military in charge of thinking of all this stuff before it even happens. Like, we have to have, and you said there's tons of papers, but we need to start doing that. We need to start figuring that out. But more than that, there's so much disaster and chaos in the solar system alone. Just nature, the universe.
Let's take it the comic book route. Okay, and this is a real worry. I take it lightly, but it is a real worry. The arch villain, the super villain, right? In the educational and the tactics world, they're called individual actors. Okay. So an individual actor comes on the field with a new technology. All right. What stops me from going to the moon and looting the Apollo 11 historical site? Right. Going up there and just looting it.
Yep.
What stops me from going out and mining a planet to its core? Let's get a little bit more sci-fi, right? But on a worldview, when we relate that back to an actual law and worldview, okay, what happens when somebody has their own ballistic missile and can re-enter a payload? Okay, those are what keep the generals up at night. Yeah. This is what really scares them. Yeah, is somebody has the capability that they can't defend against, and it's not a government.
Right.
It's an Osama bin Laden. It's a world terrorist, right?
Right.
That's super villain.
Super villain, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility. Technologically, we're getting to the point where some of this technology is so advanced that to catch up, it would be a 10, 20-year process.
Right.
Just to catch up.
Right. Yeah. No, and there's like I've felt this for a while, and obviously you've been paying attention to this, but there's this, and it was the same when I mentioned this last time, but I worked in manufacturing, and that was the same kind of thing. American manufacturing has been behind for so long. To say we're going to catch up is kind of ridiculous. We should have caught up years ago, and so you can't think of it as today we're going to start. It's like, no, we're already behind, so we've got to go even faster and be smarter than we've ever been before. Yeah,
and we're catching up. The catching up is happening, and I can point to the evidence as the big box stores. Okay. Going away because on-demand manufacturing is the new. Okay, on-demand is the milestone of technology.
Right.
All right. So personal customization used to be what they used to call it. So you walk into the dealership. Here's a great example of it. That is currently in New York City. You walk into this clothing store, right? Scans your body. You put in the clothes you want. Half an hour later, it printed your clothes. Custom fitted to your body because they scanned your body, right?
Yeah.
No longer do you need warehouses. No longer do you need transportation. No longer do you need all these other things that go along with mass production. And that's scary.
Yeah.
Economics are scary. I mean, that's an economic scary. So the on-demand, if you get rid of Walmart, everybody goes to this custom looming process, right? You walk into a store and you choose your clothes, and it's a digital intellectual property piece, right? And the computer runs the system. So the manufacturing is the past. What is happening now is the on-demand manufacturing, quick prototyping, quick R&Ding, and being able to change directions. And I think Silicon Valley shows us this a little bit better sometimes. Because their business model kind of wanders all over the map, depending on what the internet did, right? So first it was dial-up. So you had people like AOL, and then Time Warner AOL became a news company, right? And Time Warner bought them. So there's a wandering business model that is very unfocused in your customer acquisition, right? And then we go back to the space industry being very hyper-focused on their customers,
right?
On their customer base. So you get a lot of guys that want to work with the military, right? And they operate in that secrecy blind,
right?
We like to wander. I like to say, hey, that may work over here,
right?
And it's a generalist attitude.
Yeah.
We run into this quite a bit, especially in the academic world, where specialization is value, and there's value to being a specialist. Okay, but that generalist is the one that can come along and actually troubleshoot your problem.
Right.
So when the specialist comes across the problem, he goes, okay, how do I apply what I've learned against it? A troubleshooter or a generalist comes up and goes, okay, this is something similar to the mining industry. I saw in the mining industry, or I saw in the radiation industry. So let's approach it from that perspective. And that helps the innovation from the top down.
Yeah.
That you're not really a specialist. Musk really isn't a specialist. He's got a bunch of things he's working on.
Right. Yeah, if you've been paying attention.
Jesus isn't a specialist. You watch what he's doing, even though he's a lot quieter, he's all over the place. Right. I want to do drones. I want to do Amazon delivery. I want to do Amazon this. Robots in Amazon's factories or in distributions. And You got Blue Origin. You've got his clock project. If you haven't heard of that one,
I haven't. No.
200,000-year-old clock project. I mean, there's a lot of little projects he's got over a lot of different industries. And if you do some historical, you see the same thing in any type of tycoon. Okay. So you had guys that were in lumber, and they were in the railroads, and they were in the factories.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's how they built their fortunes, is they weren't just in one industry. And that's the way to commoditize an industry. The Model T. Okay. Right. It wasn't that he had a better car. It's that he said, okay, now I have a delivery truck for you.
Right.
And told the delivery drivers, this is your truck, right? And customized it to their needs.
Right.
And that's what we want to bring to rocketry, is say, look, I'm not a max lift rocket.
Right.
Okay. So you bring me your payload, and we scale our rocket to your payload. It's like being on the highway. You have the BFRs, which are the semi-trucks. Right. Right? They're going to one destination, or the buses. Mm-hmm. There's buses of people going that destination. Okay? Well, we're the personal car. Right. We're the one that takes you to wherever you want to go. You're not just going to the ISS, to the bus station. Right. Right? You don't have 20 other passengers packed on top of you. So there's a lot less failure rate in that inherent model, right? Right. Because the complexity goes down. Right.
Wow. It's amazing how this industry is going to change. The Space Force stuff, I feel, is inevitable. I know there's a lot of people fighting it, but I think it's way past the greatest branch of the military ever. It's past that. It's now about, okay, this is happening whether we wanted to or not. The idea is already out there. So we've already opened the box. So we need to figure it out. We need to get our act together and finally push to the point where we should have been, I feel like, 20, almost 40 years ago at this point.
And the example I get, it's coming around. Mm-hmm. New Space recognizes it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it is coming around. The where I noticed it most was ISDC in Puerto Rico. Mm. And I noticed, this was 2-3 years ago now. I first noticed the disconnect problem that we've tried to address with our SciComm. There were 35,000 people across the way at the convention center. Mm-hmm. Okay. At a comic book convention.
That's a lot.
There were 600 at the space convention, right across the way.
Yeah.
So when I told the boards there, I said, go over there and go get the Trekkies. I'm sure Starfleet Academy or whatever is sitting over there. And that's what they did. Good. They went down there and got Trekkies. I said, that's the way we need to market them.
Definitely.
One of the greatest things that we do a lot of is everybody brings up the aliens, because we're concentration on biology. Yes. And I said, here are the two options. We are alone in the universe. That's pretty scary on its own. Okay, because what does that mean for our responsibility to spread life beyond this planet? Right. Do we now have a responsibility as caretakers to take life with us everywhere we go, mm-hmm. and make everything we can filled with life? Okay? Mm-hmm. And then the other option is even more scary, which is there's life out there. Right. Okay? But what kind of life is it? Right. So is it microbial? Is that just common, which mm-hmm. is what Bella thinks it is? Mm-hmm. Okay, that microbes are all over the place. They're common. They spread all the time. Mm-hmm. Okay? And as you get more complex, you get less rare. You get more rare, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a fairly good model. Well, what if we come across a planet and there's one microbe on it? Right. Does that microbe own that planet now? Or can we walk in and destroy it?
Right.
And these are real questions. These are real, asteroid mining, we may pull an asteroid back and find out it's riddled with bacteria or fungus, those are real questions. What do we do about if we do find life?
Right.
When we do find life? And then what do we do if we don't find life? If we see nothing?
Yeah. If it really is the infinite void.
Yeah, if it is the infinite void and there's nobody to say hello back, then what do we do with the species?
Right.
But those are the questions that we can actually use to inspire the rest of the populace to say, look, it doesn't matter if there's aliens or not. We're going to find one of these two conditions. Which one do you want to talk about?
Right.
Okay. And you'll find that most people want to talk about one or the other. What if there is no life? Yeah, that's a good question. We got to save the planet, right? And spread the planet, colonize and terraform, and
yeah.
We get to the point where Bella wants to be at, where our spacecraft are living beings, right? It's a living system, and the human is a symbiote inside the living spaceship.
Wow.
So there are huge questions and that's why we say that this is bigger than the Industrial Revolution. This is bigger than the Agricultural Revolution. This is the species saying, I'm not going to destroy myself anymore. Let's go do something cool.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Really, it really comes down to it. I don't want to watch The Walking Dead. I want to go do something cool.
Yeah. It's the 21st century, damn it. Let's do it.
My basement's not that cool.
Hey, my basement's pretty cool.
Well,
no. But that's...
When you go stand in front of the Grand Canyon by yourself,
right.
It's pouring down rain, and you're watching the crows playing on the winds off the Grand Canyon. There's no way you can see that on TV and ever experience it.
No.
I'm about to start out on a journey here on my motorcycle. Probably by the end of the journey, it'll be about 3,000 miles. And you're never going to experience that. You can never experience that again.
Yeah.
It's scary, but at the same time, you won't come back as the same person.
Yeah.
And that's what I encourage everybody out there to do. Because if you feel like you're in a funk, go do something that scares the hell out of you. Because you won't be the same.
I agree with you completely.
I drove from Vegas to St. Louis by myself. And I stopped in Monument Valley, Grand Canyon, and a couple other places by myself in the middle of winter. So I had the whole valley to myself. Literally to myself. There was one other car in the valley on the other side of the valley.
Wow.
In the middle of summer, there'd be hundreds and hundreds of people there.
Right.
So there's experiences that can have you changing the way you look at the world. And those experiences are the ones that, when you look back at your life, you're going to say, wow, that was one of those tales that I will tell for the rest of my life. Good or bad. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And I equate it to this journey on space flight. I come out of the medical world. I don't have higher degrees. Okay. But this is the journey I chose. I chose to put my energy into it.
Yep.
And that means doing things that others wouldn't to get this accomplished.
Yep.
Right. But it also puts me in positions that you would never dream of. Being in a national park by yourself. It's having 5-6 crows come up to say hello.
Right.
Okay. Big raven crows, right?
Yeah.
Sitting with Buzz Aldrin. Things that you never thought you'd ever do, you do.
Me sitting here talking with someone who started a space company with their daughter. I never thought I'd be doing that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. No, you're 100% right. That journey and putting yourself on that journey and just to go after something that means something to you, something that you're passionate about. That's why I love that you're talking to Trekkies and people at Comic-Cons. There's so much passion there that if you can just focus that passion, and then the rest of the stuff you can teach people. You can teach them what they need to know, and they can run with it from there. People are smart enough for that. And if you can hook the passion,
they want to be involved.
Right.
They see it coming.
Yep.
And they're part of the early adopters, right? A lot of these cosplay people, they actually print or 3D printers.
Yep.
Okay, so there's a lot of websites, or a lot of Facebook pages and everything for 3D printing props. So there is a real maker community in America.
Yeah.
What we see in India, I get a lot of kids that are asking me for jobs, and I tell them, go build something.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to distinguish yourself by building your own things first before you're going to get a job, because there's a surplus of engineers.
Oh, dude, that's the story of my life. That's the story of my life. Yeah. That's exactly what happened to me. And for anybody else that's an engineer, let me tell you, I went to school for aerospace engineering, didn't get a job right away, because all the people that they were looking for already had the top grades in the class. They already had the job. So what happens with everybody else before they graduated? And people were calling up the department saying, who's your smartest people? We want them. That's where the jobs go. Yeah. And the rest of the jobs are either an internship that becomes a job, or you find yourself in a company, develop your skills and grow in that. Or you do like what I did, is buy a 3D printer. Build it, learn how it works, then start, for me it was, I can get paid for this? Cool, let's put it up online, let's get customers. You learn how to run a business, how to run a printer, how to make, how I say it, bring an idea into reality. But that's just my path. It could be anything. Totally. If you want to do this, do not wait for someone to get you that job or some job to give you that experience. Get it yourself.
Yeah, let me tell you the bad part of startup life. Okay, it's not glamorous travel. It's not meeting all these glamorous people. It's working alone in your basement 16 hours a day, every day after you get off work.
We have a lot in common, right?
Okay. It's crashing on people's couches. It's driving, not flying, because it's cheaper. We stay at national parks a lot because they have showers.
Oh, nice.
And it's usually $7 to $20 a day versus a hotel at $100. And guess what? By doing that, we then have money. If we do have extra money, we can go do other things.
Right.
Okay. You don't spend it on the hotel that you spend 6 hours of sleep in. Yeah. Right. I'm not taking the motorcycle because it's going to be a grand adventure. I'd much rather take the car.
Right.
But to get from here to Cleveland's $25 in gas.
You can't beat that. Yeah, and that's the cool thing about when you get into that startup life, and your focus is your goal, where you're heading with the company, where you're heading with yourself. Because if you're joining the startup life, you're going to be working on yourself as much as you're working on the company. I don't know if does that ring true? Yeah. So, and
you're going to lose my relatives. The funniest thing I've heard from my relatives is, do you talk about anything else? Anything other than space flight? Yeah. I said, you got to understand, I'm so focused. Yep. And this is all my attention. There is no social life. There is no going to the movies and going out to the bar and hanging out. And most of your time is spent working. Yep. And there's a big difference between the Barnum and Baileys of the industry and what we do. Right. And what some of the unsung new space companies do. Okay. Because we're under the radar. The space media doesn't take small sats all that seriously yet. Nope. And new space companies at all. So you get 6 articles on Musk and SpaceX. Right. You get 12 articles on relativity with Mark Cuban behind them, right? Right. I mean, that's marketing. Yep. Yep. And what you see is the new space companies don't see the need to do that. to the mass media yet. So we're going after customer acquisitions.
It's great.
I know a new space company that's selling CubeSat kits.
Oh,
and they
cool.
make hundreds of thousands of dollars a month selling these kits.
That's awesome.
So that's how they're maintaining themselves, right? Is the little CubeSat kit. But they have ambitions larger than that. So there's a big difference in what the media is being portrayed as versus what the industry is showing you. What I mean by industry showing you is if you actually look at the supply line, when you see 119 small satellite launchers on the books as being under development,
right,
that tells me that the supply line is strong. Okay. There's a definite need. When you see Planetary Labs opened up a facility that can produce 300 CubeSats a week, they just announced today.
That's crazy.
A week, 300 CubeSats.
That's crazy.
So, so 1,000 missions a year is not out of the range of what we predicted 5 years ago. We predicted in 2020 you would see 10,000 CubeSat launches.
Wow.
If it was possible.
Right.
There would be capacity for customers for 10,000 launches a year.
Right.
Of individual CubeSats. So we really did plan for that type of volume.
Well, and the direction that it's taking. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the volume the space industry did not foresee.
Right.
So if you look at a lot of the small satellite launchers, they're set up for, a volume of 30, 40, 50 launches a year. That's everybody's model.
Yep.
And they're all the same. And we really want to drop that to a commodity price eventually.
Right.
To the point where you know what your research and development costs are every time you go to fire a rocket.
And that's something that's never, that hasn't even been a thought. Like there's no, if you go to a website, you go to SpaceX, there's no price, it's call for more. You know what I mean? Like it's, there's no, hey, here's our breakdown.
Yeah. And we want to tell you.
Right.
We want to tell you what it's going to cost you. Okay? That's a pretty easy number for us to tell people. The problem is it's not easy for them because of the way their rocket operates, right?
Right.
The rocket's not designed to lift nothing but their max capacity.
Right.
So that just is the business model they run. But setting a price, setting up to the point where we can do an on-demand firing, and that's mainly the propellant. That's manufacturing of the propellant. Because the rockets are so easy, we would have to store propellant, manufacture propellant to produce an on-demand system, right?
Right.
So, but this is the way we can go to, somebody asked me about asteroid defense.
Yes.
You can't fire a rocket you can't fire a rocket on an asteroid.
No.
This you could.
Yeah.
This you could.
With this, right. Yeah, because it's so crazy when you think about how many times have we talked about in culture, human culture, about an asteroid hitting the planet. We know from the geology of the planet and from what we look back, asteroid hit, wiped out almost all life. This is an inevitability. And at this point, the best we have is a little bit of a scan of the stuff right around us. And we're still missing stuff. And
we're still missing stuff, and we've got a whole direction we're blind to.
Yes.
Coming out of the sun is completely blind. You will never see it coming. You can't see it coming. It just is going to appear one day like it happened, a month ago.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's going to continue to happen. The part of the problem, this is part of that science, they told us for a long time that the space was a static place. Things happen on long time scales, and if asteroids were still crashing into each other, they'd be pulverized by now. Is a line I remember.
That's a dangerous logic, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what we're finding is it's pretty chaotic.
Yeah.
Nothing has really settled down into a rhythm. It's pretty still spun up from whatever happened.
I mean, it's amazing that we're at this point in time in our solar system that it's as stable as it is, but it's still...
But it hasn't been that stable.
No.
And And that's the big thing. And if we look back during human history, there's a possibility it wasn't that stable even very recently. Okay. And it has become stabler. But we look at what's come back from Juno, what's come back out of Cassini. Okay, some of these really good probes. And what we see is a chaotic place. Jupiter's storms are raging every day.
Oh my God, those pictures are insane.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine looking out a spacecraft window and looking at the surface of Jupiter and watching those storms move?
I almost see it as I'm looking at the picture. It doesn't even compute sometimes. You're just like, the scale of those storms are just...
The last, the last purview that they went through, I think it was either 14 or 15, they caught cloud tops of clouds that were separate from the surrounding clouds.
Whoa.
And because of the angle of the sun, they had a little bit of shadow to them, so you could see some definition. And they look like thunderheads. I mean, they look like standard thunderheads you would see on a spring day on the Midwest, right? The tornado producers.
Wow.
The giant anvil thunderheads. That's what they look like. But there was not just one or two. They were scattered across almost every picture. You could find 2 or 3 of them.
Wow.
So you could see the pressure that was causing, or the heat that was causing that thunderhead, that cloud, to reach up past where the normal layer of cloud was.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sobering thought to think that cloud could be hundreds of thousands of feet tall above its surrounding clouds.
Yeah.
Right. For the image to be caught. So it's pretty amazing. There's going to be some big discoveries, I think, very shortly. Osiris Rex I've got very good high hopes for Osiris Rex.
Yes, and those who don't know, Osiris Rex is going to the asteroid Bennu to go down to the surface, basically spray some gas, grab what they can that releases up, put it in a capsule that's then going to get returned to Earth so we can observe it. So, pretty wild stuff.
The asteroid miners are watching this. The planetary research people are watching this. There's a lot of Regulus style people that are really interested to actually get their hands on what real asteroid Regulus looks like and compare it to like moon Regulus.
Wow.
Okay. Moon Regulus is a lot of sharp little knives. And the thought is that maybe there may be a difference in the texture on the asteroids.
Sure.
On some of the asteroids. So it's going to be interesting. The next couple of Jupiter passes are going to be pretty nice to look at. And then the solar probe.
Yes, the Parker Solar Probe. Oh.
Yeah.
That's some crazy science right there.
The solar probe is going to be an interesting one. We're going to be able to look much, much deeper into what actually is the sun.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds strange to people, but we really don't know what it is. We kind of know how they work. We don't know what they do.
No. This will be the closest spacecraft to the sun ever. And it's we did an episode. If you're interested, listeners, watchers, we did an episode last time on the Parker Solar Probe on that mission, so you can get a kind of a deep dive into that more. But Brian, sorry, I cut you off there.
That's all right. No, you're good. The other ones that are coming up that I would really like to see, there's the Europa Titan Enceladus mission. And I know Europa Clipper, I think, got funded.
It did. Good.
And those are missions to biology, right? That's looking for life in the Jupiter and Saturn systems. Both have a water-type planet. They have either liquid water or liquid methane gases, or liquid methane and hydrocarbons. And they want to put a submarine under the surface. And actually swim around it. And then I was really excited. I don't my engineering mind doesn't particularly like it, but I like the advantage of it is the Mars helicopter.
Yeah, that's going to be a really strange one, but fun.
Yeah, that's going to give some good range. And I think that's what we need to see before, even on the moon. I think we need to have a hopper or some kind of jumper type of robot to explore the moon before we start sending people there. One of the questions I asked Buzz Aldrin was, do we land near water, or do we just hope water is near where we land? When we go to Mars or the moon or anything. And the land grab on the moon is at a couple different craters.
Okay.
So it does seem like everybody's going where the water is. Okay. And as everybody knows, the reason that is not because of human, it's because it fuels rockets.
Right.
It's your fuel.
Right.
So more than likely, you're going to find Mars missions, anybody that's planning a Mars mission, they're going to start concentrating at water markers.
Right, which hopefully...
Which means the pole.
Yeah, and hopefully with the ESA discovery of that subsurface lake, which still, we don't know if it's water. The readings are what they expect it to be. But, I think... with that kind of thing, it's like let's stop guessing, guys. Let's send a rover down there, drill down, mine it. Let's look at it. We can't. The big mistake NASA can make, in my opinion, is to keep releasing these different studies of, we think we found water. We think we found water. It's not good. We talk about marketing. It's not good long term. For NASA.
Yeah, I know. The scientific study I believe I read on that source said specifically that the surrounding rocks and the water contained in it would be like hydrochloric acid or something.
Right, yeah, so super
surrounding rock.
Yeah,
something you'd never be able to decontaminate, right? No. And that's why it was showing up as a surface, because the limestone, and there was something I don't remember the exact study I read so many, but it was a composition of the surrounding rock versus that location, and it had to do with the chemical interactions. So there's a wide variety of problems, even if you do discover water, and it may technically be water.
Right.
There may be a possibility you never get decontaminated enough for you to drink it,
right, or
use it even for fuel,
right. But we can't get caught up in that. That's the thing. We can't get caught up in the fact that, we might not be able to do this. Like, for instance, and we'll close with this if you don't mind, because I've kept you a while, which I really appreciate. One of the things that I saw online the other day was that they did the research. There's not enough CO2 on Mars to terraform it eventually. Because if you melted both ice caps, even that release isn't enough to warm it up to the point. And the article was phrased in a way that was like it was impossible. Like, sorry, that's it. And I sat there with my jaw dropped, looking at the screen, going, is anyone realizing what they just said? Do we not have an excess of CO2 on this planet? Should we not try and gather it and send it there? Why are you stopping? Why are you stopping at, we can't do it, that's game over? Let's figure it out.
So the solution we had looked at for Mars's terraforming solution is actually going to Valles Marineris and terraforming a deep canyon in the valley. Okay. Use some sun reflectors to bring more light into the valleys and increase our product. And I think that we looked at it, it looked like you could actually walk out without a spacesuit on, and it would be almost atmospheric pressure.
Whoa.
It's still cold as hell. But it was like a 2 meter tall wall would keep the atmosphere from leaking out to the rest of the canyon, right?
Wow.
So there are some weird opportunities out there that aren't being thought of just yet. That we're experiencing them as these little quirks.
Yeah.
So you hear one thing come out of one guy at one speech,
right,
and then it connects to another thing over here,
right.
So that's why the Gateway to Space, we put that speech, all the speeches up online, so that after the conference you can go look at it, see what was said and what was talked about.
It's good.
Because there is a cross-pollination happening, right? That we need to encourage.
Yeah.
We need to encourage that because nobody's got the right answer just yet.
No, and to just drop it, and that's the point I went on that rant, is why drop it like a bad habit before you even gave it a chance to grow? And that's the cool thing that I see with what you're doing, with your outreach, with Stofiel Aerospace, is you're introducing the fact that, hey, guess what? We're not stopping. We're going to keep going, and we're going to misbehave. We're going to get out there. We're going to do things. We're going to mess them up, but we're going to find out what we can do next. Ooh, another technical difficulty. Hey, Brian. That's okay. No, but just there's what you're doing is great. I think that you're pushing this forward is fantastic. I think it's in the same line that Elon's doing, where it's just putting it in front of everyone's face so they can't ignore it anymore. Space is going to revolutionize what we're doing here, and it's going to change the way we look at life, the way we look at our planet, the way we look at the universe. And very happy that you came on today. Congratulations on all those awards. You're doing great work. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me on again. Everybody Ad Astra, we'll see you in space.
Amen. All right, Brian, thank you again. Fly high, burn hard.
Fly high, burn hard. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Have a great one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Wow. So there you go. So Brian Stofiel, again, another great episode. Tons of technical difficulties, but thank you guys for staying with me on that. As always, thank you for listening. My mind always gets blown after these episodes. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's so much adrenaline when you're talking to somebody like that and talking about things you're passionate about. And that's why I was so glad we went where we did with this conversation. It's a little bit long. We haven't done that in a while, but I think it was so worth it. It was so great to talk to Brian. I can't wait to see what happens in the future. There's so much possibility that's not even being talked about, but we're talking about it here at the All Things Space podcast, Today in Space. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, anywhere where you find your podcast. You can also watch us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe there. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. Give us a thumbs up if you like what we're doing. All of those things help us spread love and spread science to more people so that we can get this message out there that the future is fantastic and just waiting for us. So thank you again. Hope you spread love and spread science. Have a great week. We will be back as soon as we can. Today in Space.